to BQ Prime. Overall, if you see in terms of where markets go, clearly it has been a volatile ride in today's session so far. And to discuss as to what stocks you should be looking at from tomorrow's perspective as well, joining us on the show is Sacchitanand Uttekar, Vice President, Technical and Derivative Research at Tradebulls Securities, joining in. And I'm Hiral Dadia. Welcome to the show, Sachit.
Good afternoon, Hiral, and thank you for having me on your show. It's quite a long time since we have connected, and I'm looking forward, to connect frequently with you guys now.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Sachit. Sachit, my first question coming to you is, overall, it's been a volatile ride in terms of where markets go. Specifically, if you see in terms of Nifty as well, we are still below that 17,850 mark. What are charts indicating in terms of Nifty?
Well, Hiral, I think the broader trend for us still remains negative. If you look at the last week's performance, we saw Nifty making an attempt towards 18,000 mark, and that particular attempt was again negated. If you look at the data set for the last 2 months, we are clearly seeing the Nifty oscillating downwards within this downward sloping channel. And right now we are just, a shy away from the upper end of this particular pattern. So we are not really optimistic on the trend perspective from here on. In fact, we are of the opinion that 18,000, 18,050 remains a supply zone for the markets. And we are expecting that the Nifty could drift lower towards this 200-day exponential moving average, which is placed around 17,600 eventually. But from a immediate perspective, it has displayed a negative crossover when it comes to its 5 and 20 exponential moving average. So we are expecting the momentum that was generated yesterday to continue going forward. So we are not bullish at this point of time. In fact, we are expecting further weakness in the coming trading session as well.
Right. So would it be right to say that there's a possibility that we could close or end the Feb series below levels of 18,000?
Well, certainly, yes. In fact, the data is corresponding towards the same. 18,000, the call writers have been very dominant. If you look at even yesterday's trading session, we saw some activity around 17,900 strikes, but that particular action was again negated today. But if you look at the momentum indicators, if you look at the RSI for say, it has already given a breakdown below the 50 mark. We have the 5 and 20 exponential moving averages. They are still tilting towards the negative zone. So we are not expecting any upside from here on for this particular expiry. And from a expiry perspective, the possibility of a move towards 17,750 and an expiry towards the same looks more likely than 18,000.
Right. Moving from there on, if you see in terms of Bank Nifty as well, we are seeing good amount of weakness that is being built there in terms.
I think there's the line is disconnected. Okay.
Space as well.
Sorry, Hiral, I couldn't get your question. If you can just repeat the
question. My question to you was in terms of Bank Nifty as well. There's some major pressure that has been building in terms of banking stocks. It's not been able to actually break above the budget day highs that Bank Nifty achieved, which is clearly indicating that breakout did not really have legs, right? So are we expecting our charts indicating pressure in terms of Bank Nifty as well? And specifically from a stock specific perspective, what's the indication you're picking up?
Yes, Hiral, in fact, Nifty Bank also made an attempt towards its budget day high, which is placed around 42,000, and that particular attempt was again negated. Clearly, this particular index is displaying further weakness. In fact, if you look at the relative charts, Bank Nifty looks more weaker than Nifty as of now. We are clearly, seeing a range which has been developed on the higher side. The resistance was clear at 41,000. That particular resistance has shifted lower now to 41,600, and eventually we see 41,000 also acting as a firm resistance going forward. On the support side, the 40,500 support was well maintained in today's session, but we eventually see this particular support getting violated as well. The expiry, could shape up somewhere close to 40,000 is what the overall data is suggesting right now. If you look at the structure again for the last 3 trading sessions, we have seen phenomenal, built-ups on the short side, and we expect that this particular trend, which has been on the lower side, to continue until unless we don't see a firm closing above 41,040 levels from here on. So clearly, I think this is a good candidate when it comes to a sell-on rise, perspective. Even right now, I think fresh short positions can be maintained and added with the stop loss at 41,040 for an eventual target towards 40,000.
Right. Apart from that, if you see in terms of banking names as well, specifically the HDFC Twins, ICICI Bank, as well as the Kotak Mahindra Bank, we are not seeing that kind of strength which we were seeing probably a month back. Clearly, there is that pressure building in. Do you think this is the time to even sell out from the banking counters?
Well, Lisa, I think it's better to be very selective when it comes to private sector names. I think the weakness is not that evident. But when we look at some of the PSU bank names, I think the trend is clearly well defined on the lower side. When it comes to stocks like HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank, I think probably they are more in the consolidation phase rather than the weakening phase. So as of now, it will be prudent to build short positions in PSU banks and rather avoid any fresh shorting in any of the private banking names.
Right. Apart from that, NTPC had a good run in today's session. In fact, if you see, the counter was the top gainer in terms of Nifty 50 as well. Clearly, if you go to see, it's pretty much in between its 52-week high and 52-week low kind of a range. Are you seeing further strength on this counter? Because the volumes also have been pretty strong.
Well, most of the power stocks have been buzzing in today's session. But if you look at NTPC per se, the structure is much more clear. If you look at last 7 weeks, the stock was contracting within triangular formation, and that particular formation got matured. We have already seen a well-established breakout at around 170, and the follow-through action was evident in today's session as well. So we are expecting that this particular floor, which has been established at around 165, this particular floor may not be breached, immediately. In fact, we are of the opinion that this particular momentum could extend towards 180, 185 levels in the coming expiry. So I think fresh long positions can be built in here. The stop loss should be placed at around 165 on a closing basis, and positions need to be reviewed once the stock starts scaling or trending towards 180.
Right. Moving on, if you see in terms of Reliance Industries as well, that's seeing some bit of buying interest that's coming in as well. Overall, where are you seeing that support level? Because even Reliance Industries has not been able to break out of a certain range right now. So what levels one should be watching out for, and what would you recommend doing with the Reliance Industries?
For Reliance, the broader structure is still sideways. If you look at the data from December 2021, there have been n number of instances wherein the 2300 support zone has been well respected, and we have always seen a good pullback rally whenever the stock tried to breach this particular support level. So even right now, the kind of structure that we are looking at is possibly more on the positive side. We have seen some consolidation here, but eventually we see this particular trend getting continued on the higher side. The immediate band on a broader scale is around 2800 on the higher side to 2300 on the lower side. And the midpoint of this particular band is resting somewhere close to 2500, which is its 200-day exponential moving average. So we are seeing this mean reversion play getting continued. So I think in case if someone is long in this particular counter, the advice is to hold on to his positions, and 2500, 2550 is the level wherein the long positions can be reviewed.
Right. Moving on, Apollo Hospitals saw a lot of selling pressure in today's session. Overall, what are the moving averages indicating? Are we seeing strong selling pressure to continue to build up on Apollo Hospitals?
Well, for Apollo, recently we saw a very strong rebound from the 4200 base. If you look at the structure on the weekly chart, it looks like a classic, zigzag correction getting completed. The confirmation was the fresh impulse which built in from this 4200 base. So right now, I think it's a very good candidate when it comes to a buy on decline strategy. As of now, we are expecting this particular move to extend towards 4900 eventually in a couple of months. So any declines towards 4400 should be a good opportunity to accumulate this particular counter in one's portfolio. The stop loss should be placed at around 4180 on a weekly closing basis.
Right. Apart from that, Sachit, another stock that's been making higher highs, I would say, on a daily basis right now. In fact, it's on an uptrend, is the Allcargo Logistics as well. Do charts suggest the strength to continue on a Allcargo Logistics?
Well, Neeral, on an immediate basis, it looks very difficult, but the stock has started trending below its 200-day exponential moving average after a very long time. If you look at the weekly and the monthly structure, we saw some, diverging signals there at around 430, 450. We saw signs of distribution. So as of now, I think the stock is locked into a broad range, I would say. 420 on the higher side looks like a distribution level. And on the support side, I think 320, 340, we may see this particular support levels again getting revisited. So right now, I think it looks more on sideways. One should just avoid, taking any fresh bets on the long side.
Right. And, last couple of sessions, even the IT packs has been making a lot of buzz. Yesterday's session, we did see a lot of movement in the mid cap and the small cap IT counters. Today as well, if you pick up one of the stocks, which is a Zenza Technologies, the stock ended higher. And now if you go to see in the last 1 month as well, a 31% kind of an up move is what we've already seen on this counter. What's your view? Do you think this is still a good time? And do you see a long-term strength in the stocks? Because the kind of swing that we see on the chart from the beginning of Jan or somewhere in actually beginning of Jan to now, it's like a one-way upstream.
Yes, Cyril. In fact, after a series of low top, low bottom months, the stock has managed to sustain and establish a closing above its 200 weekly exponential moving average, which is a good sign. Overall, if you look at the entire development, it looks like a classic, accumulation pattern, a rounding bottom formation. The pattern target is placed somewhere close to around 365. So as of now, I think it's better to wait for some sideways consolidation or a pullback to enter in this particular counter. As of now, it is trending way too far from its short-term averages. So probably a pullback towards 280, 270 zone would be an ideal level wherein fresh commitments can be taken. The stop loss should be placed at around 255 on a weekly closing basis. And the pattern target stays intact around 365, 380.
Right. But similarly, it's been a slightly volatile chart in terms of a Thriveni turbine. There is news to it as well. But do you think there could be sustenance with regards to Thriveni turbines upside that we've seen in the last couple of trading sessions? Or do you think this is the best time to now start booking profits?
Well, as of now, there are no signs of any major divergence. The stock is in a healthy, bullish uptrend. If you look at the weekly or the monthly scale, it has displayed a fresh breakout. So probably a trailing stop loss strategy could be prudent. As of now, the stock is trending well above its 5-week exponential moving average, which is around 287. So the stop loss should be placed at around 285 on a weekly closing basis.
Right. And apart from the names that we already discussed, Sachit, any stocks that catch your eye in today's session, which could be good bets for tomorrow?
Well, as we discussed, we are looking at further weakness in the markets in the coming days, and PSU banks are on our radar. So the ideas that we have, given to our clients is on the short side. The first name that we have already, suggested to our clients is a short sell in Canara Bank. The stop loss for the trade should be placed somewhere close to around 286. Fresh shorts can still be considered. overall, we are expecting a move towards 270. And after a series of higher closing, we have seen some weakness or distribution or profit booking in stocks from the IT space. Within that space, HCL Tech has hit our radar. It has slipped below that 1100 mark. So we are expecting further weakness in the coming session. The stop loss should be placed at 1116, and the target is placed up somewhere close to around 1080.
Right. So those are few of the counters we should be watching out for in tomorrow's session as well. Thank you, Sachin, so much for joining us on the show and giving us those views and what the investor or trader should be doing, basis cues from today's market. But overall, if you go to see in terms of markets, clearly a pretty volatile, but we ended on a flat note. If you see Sensex as well, 6672 is the kind of levels we've ended at, down with hardly around 18 to 20 points. Similarly, in terms of 50-50 as well, a 20 points cut is what we've seen. And Bank Nifty, we've ended at close to levels around 40,670. So not a major move that we saw in terms of closing, but yes, there was high amount of volatility in trade. Broader markets clearly were underperforming benchmark indices in today's trading session as well. And if you see in terms of sectors, it was the Nifty PSU Bank Index, which was the biggest drag, which ended with cuts of almost around 1.8%, whereas you had the energy pack, which saw smart gains in today's session with gains of around 0.4% coming in there. In terms of stocks as well, we spoke about NTPC. In fact, the entire energy and power space was up, and NTPC was one of the top gainers in today's session with gains of over 3%. Adani Enterprises was one of the top losers in today's day of trade. So clearly, a lot of movers and shakers that we've seen in today's session as well. A lot of stock-specific action is what we've been witnessing. But overall, a flattish day of trade, and the volatility has continued to remain high. That's all that we have in this session. Thanks for watching and have a great evening.